Okay, welcome everyone to this month's session of Beyond the Books. We are so excited that you are here. We have got a great lineup of panelists that have experience from a lot of different perspectives, and they are all trailblazers. And so we're hoping that you will be motivated and inspired by this session and get some tips from these great ladies. So we are going to get started. Without delay here, I want to introduce you to our incredible lineup of panelists. And I'm going to share my screen and give you a little background on these ladies as I introduce them. So bear with me just a moment here. Okay, our first panelist that I want to introduce you to is Irma Alvarado. Irma is an incredible trailblazer from class of 1970. She graduated with her degree in education and was actually one of the earliest known Hispanic women to earn a degree at Texas A&M. She has been honored in a number of ways for her accomplishments, including she was honored at the Centenary Hispanic Celebration. She had her story on display at the Cushing Memorial Library. She actually had a learning center named after her. The Alvarado Center is one of the Aggie Access learning communities. She has been honored by our board as an Aggie Women Legacy Award winner. She is an incredible person to know and also an incredible trailblazer, and we welcome her. And Irma, we are so glad that you are here.
Thank you so much for that introduction.
So Irma, what are you most excited about with this session?
Well, as I was sharing with my sister this morning, she's a class of 74, and she said, there's so much to talk about. There's so much to share for what we're going through and what we have gone through. And I'm hoping that today people will be inspired by the different stories that they're going to listen to.
Yeah. Well, I have no doubt that they will be. And so we thank you for sharing your time with us, Irma. And I can't wait for everyone to hear your story the way that I have gotten to hear it. So welcome and thank you again for being a panelist. We've also got, we've got such amazing women here, you guys. I want to introduce you to, let me get back here. And I want to introduce you to Dr. Dana Wells. Dana is she is class of, I'm sorry, you guys, I'm finding my desktop here. Dana is class of 1993. And Dr. Dana is an amazing and inspiring person. She has a BS in psychology that she earned from Texas A&M. She also holds an MA in industrial and organizational psychology, an MBA, and a PhD in human capital management. She is a born leader. She has her own management consulting firm. Dr. Dana Wells and Associates based out of Houston. And, you know, she is really an inspiring person because she's a local native College Station born individual, and she lived there all her life, and says that really her Christian values, as well as those roots in College Station and her education at Texas A&M, have really been keys to her success. She's got a great story to tell, and I can't wait for you to get to know her better. Dana, welcome.
Howdy. Thank you for the introduction. I'm so excited to be here. And you shared some of why I'm on this panel and glad to present. I am a local, born and raised in College Station. My blood does bleed maroon. And I was groomed to be an Aggie from pre-K to 12th grade. And, you know, my education at Texas A&M is still paying dividends today. So I'm glad to share about that.
That's great. We can't wait to hear more about it because you have a really neat, interesting perspective as it pertains to, you know, and you've got a legacy, right? Your dad's a Texas A&M graduate as well, right?
My dad did not, but my aunt is. I am second generation. Yes.
Second generation. That is amazing. Welcome, Dana. We're so glad that you've got time to share with us today. We've got another really fascinating, awesome woman here, you guys, that I want to introduce you to. Let me get back here to my desktop. I know this is probably making all of you a little bit seasick, but let me introduce you to Randy Maysnap. Let me find Randy here. Randy is class of 1979, and what you are going to love about Randy is her, well, first of all, her energy. She is amazing. And she is, gosh, she's an entrepreneur. She's a speaker. She's a continuous learner. She's very active on campus still today. She's either in the classroom or attending events or speaking or volunteering. And she is really a testament to what she does. She's an etiquette coach and she brings her best self to everything that she does and inspires everyone else to also. She is a trailblazer in the sense that she, after graduation, continued to be active at Texas A&M. She was the first woman president and muster speaker of the Houston A&M Club. She was also the first woman on the 12th Man Foundation, as well as the Chancellor's Century Council Board. So she has been a trailblazer in many, many ways and continues to do so. Welcome, Randy.
Thank you. Thank you. I am so happy to be here. I've got some good stuff to share. I've been on this earth for 63 years, and the Lord continues to provide me opportunities to live my mission statement, which is using my God-given talents to make an impact on my world. And today this is my world. And I want to give a shout out to my daughter, Sterling Knapp, who's here.
Oh, yay. Welcome, Sterling. Thank you for joining us. The last participant, panelist, you guys, that I want to introduce you to is really a special young lady also, Jasmine Wang. Let me get her picture here for you guys because she is awesome. And Jasmine is a testament to the fact that it's not too late to be a trailblazer. You know, sometimes we think that, well, gosh, all the firsts are sort of done. And maybe if I'm just now a student at Texas A&M, maybe you know, all the firsts have been taken. I'm having trouble getting Jasmine's picture up here, but I'm going to let you see her beautiful face right here. Jasmine is class of 19. She received her BA in political science. She got a minor in sociology from Texas A&M. And she's currently a second-year law student at University of Pennsylvania, which you can tell us about how that differs from Texas A&M at a later time, Jasmine, but we don't think that any school is as spirited as Texas A&M, but you could tell us differently about Penn, right? Between her undergrad and graduate school and law school, she worked as a lobbyist and a public policy advocate in the Texas legislative session for NARAL Pro-Choice Texas. Jasmine is gonna graduate from law school, and she wants to start her career working as a litigator in labor and employment, regulatory compliance, or white collar defense. So you've got an exciting future ahead of you there, Jasmine. Thank you for joining us. Tell us what you're thinking about joining this session today. What excites you the most about it?
First of all, thank you so much to the Aggie Women's Network for having me. This is my first event back as an alum, and I have very fond memories of speaking to students and to the Aggie Women's Network at large from when I was at Texas A&M. And I'm just really excited to be on a panel with such distinguished guests and to continue the conversation today about how we can further our legacies. So thank you guys so much for having me.
You're welcome. And you guys, Jasmine, because I couldn't get her slide to come up, Jasmine was the first Asian American speaker at the TAMU Student Senate. So she was a trailblazer when she was at Texas A&M, and I'm convinced she is still blazing trails in her own way. So welcome, panelists. I think we've got a really neat variety of perspective here. And so I'm going to ask you guys a few questions and get you to sort of provide some insight. And we have allowed time at the end of the session to for additional questions. So if a question comes up, I will try to catch it in the chat as we go. And I've also built in time at the end of the session for us to answer questions as well. But just to get us started, I thought it would be interesting to think about historical influences. And because all of us were at Texas A&M at a different time. And so I thought it would be interesting to hear a little about what was going on at the time that you were entering and attending Texas A&M, and what about that time in history influenced you in the choices that you made? And I'm going to start with you, Irma. Tell us a little bit about the history at the time that you were attending as one of the first Hispanic women.
I guess you're asking me because I'm the oldest.
Don't read anything into that, Irma.
I'm celebrating my 50th year reunion soon this year. So it's been 50 years. Part of that history is because back in the 60s, females were not allowed to come to the university. In fact, they were able to come, but were not able to get a degree. You could sit in classes, in other words. And remember, during that time, it was the Vietnam War. The young men were being drafted. The nation was in transition, and so was the civil rights movement. And so somebody challenged the system as to the requirements of admission. Why was it only for boys? And to be honest, there were a lot of people against it because they were comfortable with the school being for boys only. And the tradition and the military was great. So there was no need for change. But somehow in the middle of the 60s, there was a group of people that challenged, and it was a transitional time for A&M. And so the admission requirements were being challenged, and they said, why not? And so they said, okay, in the I think it was 64, that they decided, okay, we're gonna allow the females to come in, but only under two requirements, which was one, you had to be the daughter of one of the professors, which in my lifetime, that would have never happened. My parents only had an elementary degree, or high school, I was saying high school. And so the second was you had to be married to a student. Well, guess what I did? I married one. And so I became one of the first ones. And I didn't know at the time, to be honest. I didn't know. I just knew that there was no role models for me. I didn't have any girlfriends, friends. All my friends were my husband's friends, which were all in the architecture building. And so that was what was going on in my time. It was either sink or swim. It was a transitional time for me, being married, having to enroll, and having to be accepted as one under those conditions, because the history didn't change until 1971. That's when you all were allowed to come with no requirements other than the academic, but the social requirements were not there. And so to come to a university with 14,000 males, a man, and had to be married. And so it was wonderful and exciting time for me, but it's also a transitional time for A&M.
That is amazing. I can't imagine the courage that took, Irma. Dana, I'm curious. So you were a student about what, 20 years later?
Yes, 1990s. Yes.
And so tell us a little bit about the history and how it influenced how you felt at that time.
So again, I was born and raised in College Station, and pre-K through 12th grade, both Bryan College Station schools, we were groomed to be Aggies. We did a lot of research at the university. A lot of the faculty came to our schools, so it was ingrained. You asked about my dad. My dad was one of the first 12 Black men from Bryan College Station to attend Texas A&M in the late 60s, early 70s. He did not graduate because, again, he didn't have that group of people around him to support him. So it just wasn't a fit. However, he took us to Bonfire. We did all of those things. We got Shipley's hot donuts, all the things that the Aggie experience, I had that. So this was natural for me to be an Aggie. At the time that I was there, you think about the 1990s, late 80s, corporations were downsizing middle management. The internet was just coming into play. So we had this real shift in technology during my time at the university. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Okay. So Randy, let's contrast that. So you were sort of in between these two. What was the sort of historical environment? How did that influence your choices?
I remember in high school, I graduated high school in 75, and I went to an Aggie football game, I think as a senior, and met a woman who was there on campus. I guess it would have been the fall of 74. And she lived in I think it was Kruger that she lived in. And she, on her calendar, had a listing of all the football games with the unique dates she had on for every game. And she just said, there are so few women here, you have dates all the time. And so I was so excited. I did choose to live on the north side of campus, although there are people who to this day go, oh no, I know you lived in Kruger. I went, no, I live in Keithley. I was a Keithley kisser because it was Keithley, Fowler, Hughes. And so we were the three female dorms on the north side of campus. And so we ate in Sabisa. I was real involved with the dorm, and it was amazing because I lived in the dorm for 3 years, which is unheard of right now, but it was a great experience, and just a lot smaller.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so Jasmine, so let's fast forward to, did you start in 2015?
I did.
Okay,
Yeah, so not too long ago.
That's okay. So did it feel like, what feels like or stands out for you as maybe a kind of a historical marker that was unique to you, felt like?
I think it was a couple of things. The two that stand out the most, I think, and that were the most formative to my experiences were probably the 2016 election, and then also whenever Richard Spencer made a stop at Texas A&M. And so, Richard Spencer is an alt-right white nationalist who, was invited by a student group to campus in 2016, at the end of 2016, and I was one of 6 students who were invited to speak at a counter-protest event that the university sanctioned. And it was a very formative experience for me because, this was something that was picked up by national news media. The Homeland Security was involved. It was a crazy time, it was a very busy time for this little college town in the middle of Texas. And so, I found it to be one of the more formative experiences of my time at A&M because I was given this incredible opportunity to kind of use my voice as a medium for progress before I was actually extremely involved in student government. And so it was a really meaningful experience because I think it showed me exactly the potential for advocacy on campus. And it was kind of the beginning of my leadership journey at Texas A&M. And, you know, I don't remember that particular event particularly fondly, but I think it was a very important event to kind of reflect back on in A&M's history.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. That is amazing. So wow, we span a couple of decades in our kind of presence at A&M, and yet obviously for all of us, history played a role in and helped to shape us. So I'd kind of like to talk about during that time. So we've sort of described what that time was being influenced by, but I'd kind of like to talk a little bit about barriers or double standards or, you know, status quo that was kind of in place that you faced. And I think our audience would be interested to hear your personal story of how did you face that and how did you overcome that? And Randy, why don't you start us off? Do you have any recollection of any sort of double standards as it pertains to women or any other stereotypes that you encountered when you were at Texas A&M?
Not so much when I was on campus. I did, though, when I was a freshman. I decided I was just going to go for it and run for class agent, not for a class agent position. And so I ran for class of 79 secretary, and I was able to successfully have that position for 3 years. And then my junior year, when I ran again for my senior year, I thought, oh, I've got this in the bag because I've done it for 3 years. And I ran against a man in the Corps who he'd never been involved, but surprise, he won and I did not.
Yeah.
And that was okay. That was okay. Where I really encountered it, though, was once I got out and I began to get involved with the Houston A&M Club. And so I think that when I moved into a leadership role there, there were a lot of older AGs, and I'm talking older AGs, who just thought, what is this woman? Who does she think she is coming in here?
Doesn't she know her place?
Exactly. She is supposed to just sit there and look pretty, honestly. And I had a man one time tell me, Randy, you are a bad AG. Well, they could have said, you are not pretty. I don't like the clothes you wear, but to tell me you are a bad AG. And Trig, you probably know who it is. She's she's listening. She's laughing right now. Because they were caught in this tradition. I see that with A&M a lot of times. And so I came in and said, hey guys, I know this is a good old guys club, but we're running a ton of money through this organization. We really need to become a 501c3. And so I found an Aggie buddy who was an attorney, and he drew up papers. And so we became a nonprofit when I was in a leadership role. And we did a lot of different things. That was one of the slides that I had, is instead of doing coaches night the way we'd always done coaches night, we decided to have a casino. Well, I kind of decided a casino party. But again, there was hesitation by AGs. And, but I think back in the 70s, the men and the women got along. And aside from the fact that we still do not have a female yell leader, and we still only have 5 yell leaders. Okay, I probably stirred the pot too much right now. I think the student organizations, from my perspective, even now, Jasmine probably may have a different perspective, that there weren't really any barriers. If you were willing to work hard, you could do whatever you needed to do.
What do you think, Jasmine? Is that what you experienced?
Not exactly. You know, as speaker, I definitely did not have a particularly easy time in that role. I did go through it all, you know, racism, sexism, misogyny, stereotyping based off of gender or race. Those are part of my formative experience, part of my lived experiences while I was at A&M. And, you know, it would range from little things from pressure to look a certain way and to dress a certain way. You know, even when I was on campus and I wasn't in meetings, when I was just trying to be a student going from class to class, to feeling pigeonholed or scapegoated for things that were out of my control. And, you know, I think I spent a lot of time working with upper administration, with very important stakeholders at the university in my role, and it's a very public facing role.
Mhm.
You know, I was frequently the only woman or the only person of color in an entire room. That was kind of a discomfort that I had to become comfortable with. And it was part of the process, I think, of being in leadership at A&M. And, you know, the Student Senate, as much as I, you know, have to thank them for giving me so many of these wonderful experiences, continues to be a very male dominated and conservative leaning body. And I was very intent on transforming and cultivating a more welcoming and inclusive culture. And that wasn't deemed to be acceptable by everybody. And, and I'm also moving into a profession, especially within big law, where there's very little space for women of color, people of color, to really ascend through the ranks. And I think, a lot of those double standards, like, they don't disappear after you graduate. It's been really important, I think, for my experience, because it's shown me exactly how resilient you have to be, both in your career, but also in these leadership opportunities. And so I'm really proud to be able to look back, though, and confidently say that, none of the people who tried to silence me could possibly keep me from traveling the path that I was meant to travel. And I would not be here today without those experiences, and I'm grateful for them. So.
Oh, that's great. And because I love that you keep using the word formative. And I think that it's a great message that you're sending, that let's don't be naive about some of these things being there, but let's benefit from them. Let's learn from them. Let's grow from them. So I'm curious, Dr. Dana, what is your experience around barriers and status quo and some of those things? Did you experience some of the same as Jasmine?
It's interesting that you mentioned that. I actually was working full time at the university while going to school there. And I had a wonderful boss. He's probably on this call right now. He was on my motivational slide, Terry Young. We actually started the Texas A&M University System licensing office, where we license technology to industry for commercialization. So we went from a university office to a system office, and I was promoted every year. And I was working from 8 to 5, going to school from 5:30 to 10 o'clock at night, year round. So I did experience some of that, but I really didn't have time to think about it. I do know that when I decided to change my major from accounting to psychology and help companies with all that was going on, the downsizing in middle management in the late 1980s, going through this transformation within our university system organization and wanting to pursue that career, I didn't see anyone who looked like me. So I had to create my own career path. And when I went to consulting firms and they saw my name and my degree, my credentials from A&M, I'm Dana Wells, but then when they see me, they're not who they expect. Or when I went to transition to say I want to do the 5-year BA MBA program within Texas A&M and have a counselor say, well, what do you want to do that for, and not get the support, that for me was a missed opportunity for the university or for the consulting firms, not for me specifically, because I'm a preacher's kid. We believe in the Bible. My parents never said can't. That was not in our vocabulary. I knew that I could do anything that I set my mind to because of the values that were instilled in me. And so I created my own path. And what I've realized is any barrier in front of me that inhibits me, it's because I choose to look at it as a barrier, not as an opportunity. And several of the things that I learned when I did have that in front of me is I needed to use the network, leverage the network that's already in front of me, my existing network, the network I can build. There are people who are like me, like the Aggie Women Network and the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. Some of them are on the call today. And just build these relationships and just knock down the barriers. I am the one who creates those barriers for me. We create our own barriers. We respond. The way we respond to what people put in front of us defines our trajectory. So we just blaze our own trail. Step over it, step around it, go under it, go through it. That's what's been my approach.
Yep, that's great advice. Irma, what would you add as far as advice that we could pass on for overcoming and dealing with some of these stereotypes and perceived barriers, to use Dana's language, the things that could be perceived as barriers?
Well, as I reflect on my time, it was resiliency. It was my faith in God. It was the support of my family that enabled me to go through it. Because as you see, I don't know if you were able to see, this is the first Hispanic male. Look what they wrote about him. They was the first Hispanic. Look what they wrote about me. Okay. When you look at this, all male, only one girl with a hairdo. When you see my honor roll, distinguished student, my identity was not there. I was the son of instead of the daughter of.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
those articles still remind me that it was through my faith in God,
Yeah.
through the support of my parents and my brothers and sisters, that I was able to accomplish what I have accomplished so far. The academic standards were the same, but for us to have the social standards was a double standard.
Right.
And so what advice I would give them, it says, don't let anything intimidate you.
Yeah.
I remember a guy said, if you think you're so tough to be with us in A&M, you open your own doors. And I said, get out of the way, I'll open them. You know, just get out of the way. Just don't need anyone to open my doors. My door has opened the doors for me. So excellence, strive for the core values of A&M, respect, integrity, service, give back to the university. All those things is what make you proud of who you are.
Yeah. That is all of you so inspiring. Such great testimony of the women of courage that you all are. And I just, can't emphasize enough the fact that what we keep hearing over and over from all of you is this was my choice. And this is what I learned and took away from it. And there's no victims here on this panel board. And I think that is a real key to a trailblazer. Don't you guys all kind of agree? We're not a victim. So I'm curious about other motivations. We all, you guys are, and ladies, you're obviously self-motivated and very self-assured. But there were probably some people or something in your life that particularly motivated you, especially when it got hard. And so I'm going to start with Jasmine here. Jasmine, when it was the hardest, where'd you go for your motivation? Was there someone or something that you really drew from?
I think it's both a thought process and also the people in your life. But I think, for the last couple of years, a lot of my mantra has been being focused on my goals and knowing that success comes with consistency and disciplines. That's a really big part of who I am. And just, reminding myself that a ship in harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are built for. And, I've had a lot of notable famous influences, specifically Gloria Allred, who's an attorney out in Los Angeles who represented Bill Cosby's sexual assault survivors. From the legal perspective, I'm truly standing on the shoulders of giants, both in the legal field, but also from Texas A&M. And closer to home, I have so many people to thank that if I started, I wouldn't be able to finish because I am who I am today.
Academy Awards, we'd have to start playing the music, wouldn't we?
Right, absolutely. And, I think, I'm continuously inspired by friends who are changing what it means to be a female attorney, my peers who make me strive to work harder and to be better, my parents who gave up everything to come to this country, with probably like $40 in their pocket to give me the opportunity to be the first in my family to attend an Ivy League institution, for my mentors who've treated my successes and my failures and my accomplishments as their own, for my mentees who teach me humility and more every day. And I learn so much from, my own mentees. And, I think it's just incredible, the circle of people that you surround yourself with, because
Right.
you truly are the product of the people that you surround yourself with. And I also want to give a shout out to Kaylin Cavazos, because she is on this call today, and she was my advisor whenever I was, working as speaker. And there are things that have happened that I would not share with another soul beyond her, because she was there for me through all of it. And so I just think it's incredibly important to seek out mentorship, but also to seek out sponsorship, someone who's willing to go to bat for you whenever things get really tough. So
yeah, that's great that you've had some women in your life who've served that role. And I think that's great counsel to give to other women, is that those are the people you should seek out and include in your circle. Dana, I'm just going to go down the line here. So Dana, what would you add as far as what motivated you and was really a source that gave you courage during these challenges?
Absolutely. And that motivation slide, thank you, Irma, for that. That helped remind me of why I'm here, even in this tough time of taking my business to the next level. My mom taught me independence and individuality. And she always told us, create your own style. Don't copy people. Let people copy you. Create your own style. She taught us innovation. She taught us total quality management, making us do it again if we didn't do it right the first time. Just reinstilling that character and the values. My dad taught me courage. He taught me I could go anywhere I wanted to go. All I had to do is read the signs. I've worked all over the world. And my parents, when they asked me, when my mom would say, I don't know how you came to do all of this stuff. And I said, Mom, it was the way I was raised. It was the values. It was on Saturday, she taught us data triangulation with the Sunday school lesson, taking the Bible and the Sunday school lesson and the Matthew Henry commentary, breaking down words and then applying a life lesson to it. And that thing I talked to you about, creating your own style, she would always come up with things like that for us to remember that it's still the character and values in us that I use today. And then my Brownie troop leader, Connie Norton, and my 11th grade history teacher, Imogene Vetters, reminding me that A&M was the gateway to where I wanted to go next. And my Aunt AJ and my Aunt Cindy, who've been mothers to me, all of these people, my grandparents, everybody in my circle, those values instilled in me, those are the things that keep me going today. And I want to be a great ambassador for these giants whose shoulders I stand on, and just support the network. And in the last 3 months, I've met amazing alumni like you and some others. And I'm thinking, man, I'm so glad I stepped into this arena, because I'm meeting people who are going to be lifelong friends and partners.
Yeah.
So this is what has motivated me.
That's great. That's great. What about you, Randy? What would you add?
as I am listening today, when I was on Firefox, and they have all those little stories you can go into, and so they were talking about speakers, and just also anytime you want to get some type of thought across is you need to have a big idea. So I want to share my big idea because it relates to what I just heard from Irma and Dr. Dana, and that is knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what your purpose in life is will enable you to have a well-lived life journey. And as I listened to both Irma and Dana, how wonderful for the women and the men who are a part of their life to be included in that life story. Mm-hmm. And I think about all the people who've been a part of my life journey. Now, when I was involved at Texas A&M, I can think of Ron Blatchley, whose wife and I were, when I got older, we were in Bible study together. And then I think of Aggie's when I was in the Houston A&M Club and I was involved with the Chancellor's Council, men who believed in me and invested in me. And you know what, though? I pray that in what I am doing, that I am that to other people. Mm-hmm. And I think that we as women leaders need to continue to invest in others. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think things like this are so important, because when I think about my leadership journey and working after I got out of A&M, there weren't really that many women in leadership roles that you could have as a mentor. We are so fortunate now because we are finally of an age where we have a little seasoning, we've got a little gray in our hair, we have a little wisdom. But I will also say that in each season of my life, I've needed someone different. For example, mm-hmm. now, as I'm doing a lot more service work, there is a woman named Chris Wilson who is in my life, and she is such a blessing to me because she's a confidant, she's a listener, she's someone that encourages me, and she is a wise woman. And so in every season of my life, I've needed something different based on where I was in my life journey.
And I think you've given us a little bit of a formula for how we can be that to others. Be a confidant and be a good listener is really kind of key. A question has come up in the chat that I want to go to in a minute, but before we do, I want to ask Irma, motivations. Irma, what do you want to add to this conversation?
Thank you for asking me. I think that is such an important question. I really believe in the importance of having a support system. If your parents or your brothers and sisters, in my case, I was so blessed to have all that. In fact, it was my faith in God that kept me. It was my mom who truly believed in education. She was, just so that you know, that piece of a newspaper was carried in her purse, in her wallet until the day she died. That was how proud she was of me attaining.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing, Irma. I can only imagine her pride.
And then my husband, it was because of my husband that I was able to be accepted. I had to marry him, you know.
Well, you didn't have to marry him. You love him, and you have.
He was my high school sweetheart. And so, and one other key, remember, I didn't have any girlfriends to be able to fellowship with no one. And so it was the support of my sisters, the support of my brothers, but I also attended First Baptist Church in Bryan. That people just took us in and invited us to their homes to have dinners on Sundays and Shipley donuts on Sunday nights. So to me, to have that blessing of having your mom, my brothers and sisters will send me money. Remember we used to send money on your postcards, and they would put all those little dimes so I could go to the washateria and wash. And I had a baby at the end of the year in 1970. So motivation, support, even my grandma and my sisters came in the summer to help me with the baby.
Mm-hmm. That is amazing. We've had a couple of really interesting questions come through the chat that I would like for us to us to try to answer, ladies. One of them, there was a little energy and a little curiosity, Jasmine, around your description of the importance of finding a mentor and finding a sponsor. And those are not necessarily the same thing. They could be this, they're a different role. And so, Jasmine, would you talk for a minute about, in your experience, the differences in those two types of people in your life?
Sure. I think it's becoming a little bit more of a prevalent concept, especially in the corporate world. And, you know, a mentor, I think, is someone who's more of a direct advisor to you. And, you know, in the law, we, especially with the firm that I worked with over the summer, you know, usually your mentor is someone who's within your practice group who is more senior to you. And so someone who can kind of give you advice about, you know, showing you the ropes of the different aspects of the law or, you know, what have you. And I think that a sponsor, at least from the advice that I've been given, is someone who is more of an advocate for their people. And so, you know, I think that that's more also someone who's senior to you, of course, but someone who's able to go into a meeting and say, you know, Jasmine's done really good work on this project. I think that she should be staffed on this bigger project, you know, and just like going to bat for your people, I think is the big difference. Of course, mentors are able to take on a lot of roles that sponsors are and vice versa. I don't think that those are always clear-cut lines or guidelines, but it is, I think, very, very important to have a separate person for both. And I think having a sponsor, at least from a professional perspective, is really important for long-term professional goals. So, you know, if I have any kind of desire to aim for partner one day at a firm, then it would be somebody, my sponsor would be someone that I would talk to about the business development side of things, about how I can bring in business, how I can bring in clients. Whereas my mentor would be more specific to my actual practice. So hopefully that kind of clears up the distinction a little bit.
Thank you. And tell me about so Randy, give me your opinion on this. Do you feel that as women, we should take responsibility for reaching out and identifying and creating those relationships, or do we wait for the mentors to tell us, I want to mentor you? So this is an obvious question, but let's give some counsel on how would you sort of go about establishing those relationships?
I think it's critical, and I think we at our age owe it to women, Aggies, non-Aggies, coming behind us to encourage them, to let them know what struggles we've had. Because Jasmine, yes, I loved your story and I loved her. I love it, but I hate that she experienced what she experienced in a leadership role at Texas A&M just a few years ago. I really, that just makes me really, really sad. But I think it's hard for my daughters who are younger to understand what Irma went through at Texas A&M, to understand what I went through and what it was like just back then, and how we've been able to survive, and the importance of having relationships. And I think it's also really important that there was a question on here that said, what have the panelists encountered from other women on their way up? Are they encouraging or competitive combatants? I've experienced few supporters. And I have to say, yeah, because women can be so mean to each other. And Tana's like, yeah. And so I think we need to live in a life of abundance and know that if someone is successful, that doesn't mean that there's not enough for us. And I think we must be proactive in finding, through our church, through the Aggie Female Network, through any organization, through schools, is helping these young women determine what their life destination is, that they can be anything they want, but to continue to encourage them. And it takes time, and it takes an investment, and it takes a heart.
Right.
But it also, they have to be coachable, because it's so interesting. I'll meet women sometimes and they just think they are all that, and don't really feel like they feel like they know everything. And so there
So
you
we
go.
have to be a little humble. So Dana, you mentioned earlier how important the network and networking had been in your career and also personally. An interesting question came through the chat that says, have the panel, I'd be interested in knowing if the panelists have been able to use the Aggie network to their advantage as much as their male counterparts may have been able to. And so, Dana, I'm going to let you kind of start us off with what has been your experience leveraging the Aggie network, because you're the best networker I know. You're good at it, and the reason I think you're so good at it is because you have a genuine desire to be that for others. Also, but I'm curious about how you would respond to that question.
It's interesting, that question, and I'm being totally transparent here. I talk about the network because my colleagues have been successful because they realized the value of the network at A&M. I did not. I was one of those 2%ers who was working and going to school. I didn't have the time or bandwidth to be as involved as I could have been. And I'm hearing all these lived experiences. I'm excited about it. One thing that I did do was apply for a research assistantship in the Department of Psychology. And that experience helped me do my dissertation research 20 years later. So that was one of the things that did add value. With the network outside of graduating from the university, I live in Houston and I've attended Houston networking sessions, and people just, I was there, but I was invisible. I tried to interact. People were not as engaging. It's a misfortune. It's unfortunate. And I still say Texas A&M is one of the best universities you could go to start your career at. When I got a call from Amy to be a part of the panel, this is what I expect. People, it doesn't matter what your race, your gender, orientation, religious preferences, any of that. It's, you're an Aggie. We want you to be a part of our network. We want to hear your story, figure out how we can help you. And in the same time, I'm figuring out how can I combine my networks. And I started saying, hey, my company is a certified woman-owned business. Are you a part of this network? I have those people on the call right now. That WeBank network has been phenomenal to me. So I'm catching up of 30 years of experience leveraging the network now. And in this time, I hope that as we're talking to the Chancellor and the President of the University and the Association of Former Students, that they realize too that the university has to be more engaging to students to pull them in, and students have to be more engaging as well. I put myself out there, and it's just like sometimes I'm perceived as invisible. It's hurtful, and I still have to keep going because I have this list of things to do. And again, that's why I go around the barrier, over the barrier, under the barrier, or through the barrier, and I get to the people that I need to get to. We just have to be persistent and resilient, and show up how we want to be treated and treat people with that same mutual respect.
Yeah, exactly. And networking is, I think what I'm hearing is it's something that everyone wants to do better. And so I want to give, I want to give a shout out to Aggie Women Network. We are trying to network. We're trying to provide an opportunity, but also if you'll go to our website, all of you that are listening, and you'll look at events, and there, we have a First Thursday event coming up. I don't have the calendar right in front of me, but there is a First Thursday event that's focusing on networking. There's also a First Thursday event that's focusing on another question that came up, is how do you confront and overcome imposter syndrome? And so we've got an event focused just on that. But what would any of you have anything that you kind of want to say about that question?
You know what? I'll jump in.
Is that the
here.
imposter syndrome one?
Imposter syndrome, yeah.
Yeah, you know, so I think I mentioned this earlier, but I'm the first in my family to attend an Ivy League law school, or an Ivy League school, period. And so coming to Penn, it was truly one of the most humbling experiences of my life, because I went from being top of my class, summa cum laude, to kind of being middle of the pack, because a lot of my peers, Harvard grads, Yale grads, Princeton grads, Berkeley grads, and I'm from a public state school. Not to knock on A&M and the education that I've received, but you know, there is a difference in that education. And you know, I very much I decided that, you know, I can be changed by what happens to me while I'm at Penn, but I refuse to be reduced by my identity, or to allow other people to reduce that for me, because I knew that I was there and that I had been accepted because I brought my own set of qualifications to the table. And I still struggle with imposter syndrome. You know, I'm a first generation professional. I don't have any attorneys in my family. And you know, I think I just remind myself constantly that a single defeat is not synonymous with a final defeat, and that there really is a lot of value to rising above the noise and focusing on what it is that you want out of your career, out of your goals. And, you know, it's very important to be in a good relationship with yourself, because that relationship with yourself supersedes all of the noise. And once you are confident in yourself, what other people think, what other people perceive, you know, it just matters a lot less. So.
Great. That's great advice. So Irma, you showed us examples of the first male Hispanic. His bio's this long and yours is that long, and some other examples. How have you, sort of to Jasmine's point, what are some tips that you have used in your successful life to not let that define you?
There's several factors. I have always been proactive, like opening my own doors. Don't be embarrassed because of your background or because your economical background. Look for mentors, look for tutors. I had to be tutored by my husband's friend on algebra and calculus and all those that were really challenging subjects for me. There is value in networking. There is value in, to me, one of my blessings this last 6 years have been to really be proactive with the university. Speaking for my kids, I have 2 kids enrolled. One is getting his ring next spring. The Aggie network right now that we belong to is one of the greatest networks. We're starting a program on mentorship. We will be mentoring whoever wants to come and join us. We're here for you. We want to help you. We want to encourage you, no matter. And that's why I put that lion face in there.
I love that.
Don't be intimidated by that.
Yeah.
You can do it. God bless you.
I love that. And another plug for the tutor. I married mine. I not only passed the class, it was calculus, but I ended up marrying him, and we're going to celebrate 40 years next month. So there a lot can be said for tutors. Go find you one, a cute one. So, following up on Irma's point, I hope that you've enjoyed this session, first of all, but before you leave us, I want to bring your attention to a few things. I have referred to our monthly First Thursday events that Aggie Women Network is a co-sponsor of. The next one is tomorrow, and they're at 5:45, and it's online, and I encourage you to attend that. Also, I don't know, this is not an Aggie Women Network event, but I don't know if you're aware, help me Dana, every Tuesday with Aggie Conversations. Tell us the logistics on Aggie Conversations.
Aggie Conversations is every Tuesday from 12 to 1:30 and 7 to 8:30. There's Aggie Conversations about the Black experience at Texas A&M. The Chancellor's on, Porter or the Association of Former Students is on, and the President is on. And it's a dialogue. We're talking about our experiences, but then we're talking about things that the university can improve. And then students of all backgrounds, current and former, get to ask us about our experiences, and it's just an open, positive, enlightening event.
Thank you. I think it's a great thing to put on people's radar, because they may not be aware of it. And so there are lots of ways, even though we're still socially distancing in many ways, there's a lot of ways to connect with the Aggie Network, and particularly Aggie Women's Network. And so we invite you all to join us. If you have not, check out our website. We have an events page on there. And ladies, I just can't thank you panelists enough. Your insight has been amazing. I'm going to give you all just really quickly, let you just say kind of goodbye and give everyone their final little pep talk. So let's start with we'll start in the same order we went in before. So Irma, what you got?
Well, I know that, thank you for joining us, and I know that it has been a challenging year for you, and you're probably having issues with the internet, with your Zoom classes, but stay in there, be proactive, make your own path, don't be unique, and may God bless you. And you will be part of the history of the pandemic students in A&M 2020.
Oh yeah, there's a whole trailblazing opportunity. Yeah. Randy, let's tell them, give them their marching orders, Randy.
Marching orders: autograph all you do with excellence and strive to be your best on the stage of everyday life. Gig 'em.
Great. Dana.
Create a slide that motivates you. Don't take no for an answer. You don't have to be perfect. Don't be hard on yourself, and reframe these things that you call mistakes. They're opportunities, and they are designed as a part of your journey in life. Gig 'em.
Thank you. All right, Jasmine.
You know, be unapologetically you, whatever that means to you, you know, whether that's opinionated, honest, strong-willed, and if something isn't right, don't be afraid to be critical of that, because that's how change happens. And yeah, thank you guys so much for having us.
Thank all of you so much. Great advice, Trailblazers. Thank you all. And I hope that you will watch the website for our next Beyond the Books event. Thank you for your time, and we hope you have a great rest of the week. Gig 'em.
Gig 'em.
Gig 'em, gig 'em, gig 'em.